7th here. I think it's going to give us a little bit of an advantage starting more up front.
Good luck to the both of you. Let's check in with Robbie Floyd. Robbie?
I'm with the man Helio Castroneves in number 3, sitting outside of pole. He can't quite get that pole in the past 3 years here, huh, Helio?
That's right. We keep knocking on the door. It's okay if I don't get the pole, but it's big okay if I have the win. Certainly, it's been an incredible straight for Team Penske in qualifying. They've been doing very well. And again, my man Power Williams, so he's doing really good. So again, we're gonna have a good battle today.
2 second places in your 2 years here. What's been the difference that kept you from taking that top spot?
Well, it's putting everything together, and this is a place that half of the track you can be very good, but all of a sudden on the high-speed corners, you might just make a little mistake and end up losing all the advantage you have. So it's a tough place. It's a very physical. Today is going to be a tough race.
That got me thinking of Will, too. We know how much he trains and stuff. Do you train anything different for this track? As you told me, this is the most difficult, physically demanding track of the year.
Well, basically, you try to keep the same type of physical. You don't push maybe a little bit the neck, because this is we're talking about 5 corners that you're actually carrying 3rd and 4th gear. And man, it's kind of tough. Hopefully today won't have any problem, and we're going to have a lot of fun.
Thanks a lot, Helio. Starting outside pole today, Lindy looking for his first win here at Edmonton.
Did you all catch Helio call Will Williams trying to break up that willpower? We know what he's up to. Thank you, Robbie. Well, earlier today, race number 8 of 13 on the 2010 Firestone Indy Lights circuit took place right here in Edmonton. James Hinchcliffe qualified yesterday, and he got the pole position, so he started first here. Starting second, J.K. Vernay in the number 7 gave him a run for his money off on the start, but guess what? James Hinchcliffe, he leads all 50 laps in this race. He ends up taking the checkered, and I'll tell you what, these Canadian fans, they went wild because James Hinchcliffe is Canadian. So they love to see him win that race. In this Mazda Road to Indy update, let's go ahead and take a look at the overall point standings from the 3 Indy Ladder Series, starting there with Indy Lights. J.K. Vernay, he still leads the point standings. He's over Hinch by 55 points at this point. In the Star Mazda Series, Connor Daly has won 4 of 7 races to lead the overall points, with Anders Krohn in second place there. And while at the halfway mark in the USF 2000 Series, Sage Karam, a 15-year-old driver for Andretti Autosport, leads the point standings with Patrick McKenna in second place. Both the USF 2000 and Star Mazda divisions race at the Autobahn Country Club in Joliet next weekend. This is the 3rd time the IZOD IndyCar Series has raced here on this temporary airport set up here in downtown Edmonton, and the 6th open wheel event contested here. Jack Arute has more on how to race here from our IZOD Pit Performance Center.
This will be the first time that the overtake button will be in effect here at the Edmonton City Centre Airport. It's kind of interesting when you take a look at how many pushes you have, but it's also the reset that will determine whether you use it offensively or defensively. Now, it's pretty obvious. Offensively, you wanted to press the button about here because this is basically the longest straightaway. You'll be able to use that extra 10 horsepower. But defensively, here's where it gets quite interesting. Coming off of turn 5 and 6, if you push the button for the duration, you might be able to use it defensively to keep someone at bay. But here's the conundrum you'll find yourself in. Use it defensively there. You won't be able, because of the 10-second reset, use it offensively at the longest part of the racetrack. So which is it going to be? A good offense or a good defense? I think that'll be up to each individual driver during the course of the race. Lindy?
Thanks, Jack. We're a little more than 15 minutes to the command of today's race, and when we return, I'll send it over to our booth trio of Bob Jenkins, Professor Jan Bikas, and Robbie Buell for their take on the recent chassis announcement. This is IndyCar Central on Versus.
Welcome back to Edmonton, just ahead of the start of today's race. I'm Bob Jenkins along with Robbie Buell and Jan Bikas, and recently the IZOD IndyCar Series gave us a look into the future at what the car will be like 2012 and beyond. A lot of unanswered questions. One thing we do know, though, is that Dallara will build the safety cell. It will cost $349,000, about 45% less than the current model. Jan, run down some of the other things that we know.
Well, Bob, why don't we first take a look at what do you get for your $349,000? You get a rolling chassis. It gets that name because you could roll it off the factory floor. Once you put an engine, and in this case, front and rear wings and a side pod, then you have a car that you can race. On the second angle of this rolling chassis, you can see the under tray. Even though it doesn't have side pods, it's much wider. That was for safety, to try and keep the wheels from interlocking. Now, the actual tub itself is going to have greater visibility. We know that Dallara already builds a very safe chassis, but they want to improve the driver padding and the technology to make it one step safer yet. Now, don't forget that the original Dallara chassis was built for oval racing only. But then the IndyCar Series went to street and road courses. They had to build all new suspensions because you need heavier suspensions to go over the curbs and the bumps, certainly to a place like Edmonton or a street circuit with the curbs. So all the teams have to have 2 sets of suspension. This car will be designed as a road course car that you could race on ovals. Only 1 set of bits, saves a lot of money. If you look at the front suspension, you can also see they have gone to a more traditional push rod suspension instead of pull rod. The angle of those suspension pieces are up instead of down. The mechanics aren't going to have to climb underneath to change the springs. The springs and shocks are up on top. You'll also have a third spring, meaning you can have ride control, which was a big hoopla this year. And overall, remember, this car has been slated to be 185 pounds less. So what's the big deal about 185 pounds? For every 15 pounds, the car is 1/10 of a second faster. If you extrapolate that out to a street circuit, that's 1.2 seconds faster just because of the weight. And don't forget about the new engine rules. The new engine rules were introduced to where the cars will have between 550 and 700 horsepower. The idea is 700 horsepower on the street circuits at a place that gets them back into the power and rate ratio of the old days. Think of Long Beach, where you had high horsepower race cars that would get off of Queens Hairpin, go down Shoreline Drive at 190 miles an hour because they had such high horsepower. Now you've got that power to rate ratio about the same. At Indianapolis, I think the current power is right about what everybody wants at 625. But then when you go to Texas, they actually would like to have less horsepower so you don't have to slow the car down with aerodynamics. And finally, Edmonton is a fantastic example. At 2,200 feet, you lose 50 horsepower just because of the altitude. Well, with a turbocharged engine, you don't lose that horsepower. And so instead of 575 like you'd have at Edmonton now all of a sudden, you've got 700 horsepower, you're 185 pounds lighter. Then don't forget about the new push-to-pass. It would be a true push-to-pass at 100 horsepower. Now you got something racy.
Now, Robbie, as a car owner, I'm interested in what you think about all this, especially the cost factor.
Well, it's all good, no question about it. We know a decision's been made. Not everybody's going to like it. Some people are going to love it more than others. But the cost is going in the right direction. And the big reason is, just like Jan said, is with oval and road course packages, it's the same suspension, so you don't have to buy that times 2. So all of that is in the right direction. The one thing that we still have to get more information on, the initial cost of any new car, you know, that's a big hit to teams. But it's the running cost. So with gears and drive gears, what's going to be the cost going forward with this car? And that's still information that we got to get from the series.
One other thing that we know, the aero packages must cost no more than $70,000. And Jack Arute, I'd like for you to weigh in on this aero package system.
Well, that's the part, Bob, that's got me excited because it's almost a look towards the past. Remember when you'd go to an IndyCar race and you'd see a Roadster and then you saw the rear engine cars and you knew what a Lotus was, then you knew what a March was, or remember Dan Gurney's Eagles? Well, now with this new package, the Aero package, or as we like to call it, the outer clothing, every car has an opportunity to have a unique look. Now, with an eye towards the economy, though, here's what I find will be really fascinating as well. Let's say you're Lotus. Instead of having to expend tens of millions of dollars to develop an Indy car, now you can develop the outside clothing and call it the Lotus Special. You could do it with Grumman Aircraft. In fact, there's been some talk that already Honda is looking at it, already Lotus is looking at it. It's a very cost-efficient or price point way of taking Indy cars and, for the fans, giving them all a unique look. I know there's a lot of other specifics that we're going to have to follow for the next 12 months or so in terms of how they're going to do it, how it's going to be improved. But I know I, for one, am really looking forward to January 1st, 2012 to see what the assortment of aero packages that might be available to teams will be.
And I think one other thing we need to talk about is parity, and will these aerodynamic packages be in par with each other?
Yeah, and it is one of the things that's really exciting is the innovation of bringing these aero packages in. I think all the fans love that. My mind as a team owner, I jump way ahead and I say, okay, how are we going to make sure there's parity for all the teams so you don't know who's going to win that race when you show up at the racetrack? How are they going to maintain that? How